Welcome, my children, said the dark figure, to the communion of your race. Ye have found thus young your nature and your destiny. My children, look behind you. And they turned, and flashing forth, as it were, in a sheet of flame, the fiend worshippers were seen. The smile of welcome gleamed darkly on every visage. There, resumed the sable form, are all whom ye have reverenced from youth. Ye deemed them holier than yourselves and shrank from your own sin, contrasting it with their lives of righteousness and prayerful aspirations heavenward. Yet, here are they all in my worshipping assembly. This night it shall be granted you to know their secret deeds, how hoary bearded elders of the church have whispered wanton words to the young maids of their households, how many a woman eager for widow's weeds has given her husband a drink at bedtime and let him sleep his last sleep in her bosom, how beardless youths have made haste to inherit their father's wealth, and how fair damsels, blush not, sweet ones, have dug little graves in the garden and bidden me, the sole guest, to an infant's funeral. By the sympathy of your human hearts for sin ye shall send out all the places, whether in church, bedchamber, street, field, or forest, where crime has been committed, and shall exult to behold the whole earth one stain of guilt, one mighty blood spot. Far more than this, it shall be yours to penetrate in every bosom the deep mystery of sin, the fountain of all wicked arts, and which inexhaustibly supplies more evil impulses than human power, than my power, at its utmost, can make manifest in deeds. And now, my children, look upon each other. And they did so. And by the blaze of the hell-kindled torches, the wretched man beheld his faith, and the wife her husband, trembling before the unhallowed altar. This is Inverted World Live. Well, that's a story from the good old days, 1835, by Nathaniel Hawthorne. It's a story called Young Goodman Brown. I love that story because it's, I think, he's one of the first horror writers in America. And he was the great-great-grandson of a judge of the Salem witch trials. He actually changed his name with a W, Hawthorne, because the great-great-grandfather was Hathorne. And he was like, I don't want to be associated with him. So it felt right to read that because it's great, and I recommend everyone reading it. But today we're going to talk about the Salem witch trials. We're going to talk about Massachusetts. And also, oddly enough, there's a mental asylum we're going to talk about that's also connected to Nathaniel Hawthorne because his family also, I believe, owned the land that would become that asylum. So yeah, I'm looking forward to talking today. Alex, what's up?
Hey, how's it going, Shane?
It's going.
I love a good spooky story leading up to Halloween.
It's great. This is, it's a story about a man who meets the devil in the forest. And this story takes place in Salem. And it's just funny because I read you that part, which is almost like it's hard to understand, I think, because it sounds like Shakespeare.
Yeah.
This guy's writing 1835. But it begins, after everything I just said in the beginning, it begins with, young Goodman Brown came forth at sunset into the street at Salem village, but put his head back after crossing the threshold to exchange a parting kiss with his young wife. It starts off very sweet, but then it ends with the devil, and it's dark, and it's amazing.
Right up our alley.
So yeah, pretty metal, pretty metal, which is my favorite genre of music. And our guest today is from Massachusetts, and he plays a lot of metal that I love. And there's something about Massachusetts that has produced so much metal that has meant a lot to me. So, and he's got a lot of great stories. He knows Salem pretty well, and we're going to get into all of that. So let's bring on Ken Susi.
Hey there.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Ken, what is up, man? Thank you so much for joining us.
I'm pretty psyched to be here. Excited about talking about my hometown, Danvers, Massachusetts, which is technically known as Old Salem Village.
That's right.
And it's excellent to be here.
So, are you a warlock or?
I am more than that. If you've ever Wikipedia'd me, I am the devil.
Oh, great! Is that how you got so good at guitar?
Yeah, I sold my soul a long time ago, so
These stories
I'll figure it out
themselves.
though. In the afterlife, I'll figure out how to bargain. I'm probably going to save somebody's life and do one good deed, go straight to heaven.
All right, that's
bypass
good.
the whole thing.
Everyone can be redeemed. So it's funny. I mean, so for those who don't know, Ken started the band Unearth, a band I love, a band I saw live way back in the day a bunch of times. In particular, for me, it was in Poughkeepsie, New York, at the Chance Theater. It was an amazing show. But now you're also playing guitar in As I Lay Dying. Those are two amazing bands. But with Unearth, maybe we can segue into Salem with this. You guys had a song called Giles.
Yeah, in 2006 on our, some people may think that's our sophomore effort, but we had a record before The Oncoming Storm.
That's right.
I believe Trevor, our singer at the time, I mean, he's from Wakefield, probably another 20 minutes north, I believe, or south of Salem. But yeah, I mean, we all grew up with the folklore. We all grew up with the stories. We all went on field trips to see all the sites and learn about the old Salem witch trials. But yeah, Giles Corey was a very, very inspiring figure. Whether it's living up to today's standards or in the past, it really does teach you a lesson on what's right and what's wrong and believing in your principles. And Giles Corey was a gentleman who was convicted later on in the Salem witch trials for being a witch. And his wife before him was put to death. And at that time, he refused to accept the fact that he was brought to court and that they basically said he was a witch, and instead they decided to stone him to death. And his final dying words when they asked him if he was going to still plead guilty or admit that he was a witch, he said more stone and more weight, and that was the end of his life. It's
crazy. I mean, they were crushing him, right, slowly over 3 days with rocks. I think sheriff, judge was sitting on the pile.
It was like a big human panini press,
Yeah, dude, exactly.
Picture a block of wood underneath, a block of wood on top, and then boulders upon boulders of just heavy weight, and ultimately they ended up crushing him to death. But what you may not read or what you may not know is that if you look up Giles Corey, he was a prominent landowner and he had a lot of wealth. And at that time, I believe those that were in power were, basically doing their thing in order to split up his land, split up his wealth anyway. So some people, that's a controversial topic, but that's what I was told, from I don't know, people that live in my town.
Did you grow up, like, how much of the lore as you know it, as it's seen in movies, do you think matches up with what you hear growing up there?
I mean, if you watch The Crucible, it's pretty, I mean, they made besides the book, they made a movie, The Crucible, and that's pretty accurate depiction. The thing that, they really don't talk about is, a lot of people don't know, I believe it's called ergot. It was a method of, purification of water at that time, and it is kind of known that basically it was a psychedelic when not treated correctly,
right? And
it was making people just trip balls. So I assume everybody who was seeing black figures and demons in the sky, or having people shape and morph or whatever it is that was frightening everybody, I think it had everything to do with the fact that they were just poisoning the water supply in their villages.
So just like they do today to everyone.
Yeah. I mean, we have they say don't count your calories, but count your chemicals.
Exactly. That is good advice. I mean, it's crazy. The ergot stuff, that's a fairly newer theory I've been seeing. It's kind of like LSD, right? So, and it comes out of people were saying bad rye, perhaps, that was making people have these problems.
Yeah, from what I understand, I haven't looked it up, but I thought it was from rye, just wheat in general. I'm sure they used wheat for a lot of different things back then, and it's pretty scary stuff. That to think, I ponder and think to myself, people like Adolf Hitler are the world's worst tragedies, like the Salem witch trials and World War I and World War II. You could say, nothing like that. Hopefully, nothing of it happens like that again. But it could come down to something as simple as a LSD in your water supply to make everybody paranoid.
Oh yeah, I think we go through cycles of these panics often throughout human history and up to recently. It's not far from what could go on. And I don't know. The Puritans were so primed to see evil in everything. Like they were kind of deeply afraid of the forest. So everything kind of became the devil to the Puritans in the woods. Do you think there's something to it though? In Massachusetts, it seems like there's always been some kind of haunting in the woods of that state.
Well, I would say if you've actually grown up in the area, and I'm sure I posted that we're live, and I don't know if you get comments and stuff, but the people that I went to school with, and specifically Danvers, Massachusetts, more than any other town, even more than Salem, there's something eerie about the area in general. There's multiple like things that have happened in that town that are it's just incredible, like dark like energy and a dark vibe. When I see like, the logo of like the Salem sports teams, it's a witch, right? They're the Salem witches.
Right.
And I feel like that's the Disneyland tourist attraction of everything. But when you actually like look into the deeply rooted history, and it's awesome that we just did this because that we're doing this now, because I just took Alex Legend, who's in the adult film industry, and Ben Alexis, who's a famous photographer overseas. They came here for the As I Lay Dying tour. We just did Metal Fest, but we just went to the Salem Museum. And it's just dawned on me that like all the true rich history came from my hometown, Danvers, Massachusetts, which was technically Old Salem Village.
Right. It's got, do you think though that a lot of the stuff that happens or people feel in terms of eeriness is because they know the history, or is there something actually there? Like,
I personally am not a spiritual person, and anything that I talk about on this live stream, I'm not going to say. I just don't believe in ghosts, and I don't believe in negative energy or any of that type of stuff. But what I will say is there is some type of haunting feeling that you get when you're alone in the woods, whether you're in a certain type of area. And, maybe I have my own theories, but sometimes it's, maybe the world just like you're living in the now, but you see images from the past of things that have happened or movements of things that happened in the past. There's so much folklore in my hometown of, ghosts and witches and, right now the church. I'll just throw this out. The church where I was baptized, the church that I grew up in, there's nature trails that go up this like long hill. And it's right across the street from this place called Endicott Park. And Endicott Park was a battleground. It was a battleground. It was a field where people battled in the when the the Americans gained their independence from the British. Right. But it was also a training facility. Okay. So it's really funny that there's this old house right next to the church where I was baptized, where there's folklore that there's a woman at like that people see crossing the street going to and from the house, and it's at Endicott Park. And if you go into Endicott Park as a kid and you're, wandering around with your friends, like looking for things, like how you are when a kid, you're just a very adventurous. Right. There's unmarked graves all in the woods of the perimeter of that place.
Oh, that's weird.
Grapes.
Did you feel anything like as a kid? Like you say, you're not really into ghosts now, but I can't. It's hard to imagine people growing up in Salem and not thinking about it more often than usual. People who are.
But when it's in your face so much,
right? Or you're watered down.
It's always been in my face, but I'm just very much a realist. So I will tell you this: when you watch a poorly scripted horror movie, do you know how like usually the premise of the movie always starts with like, I don't know, people just at a soccer field or a football game or in the town, and it's a whisper between two people, and it's always like, oh, the things that they do to those people up there, or that the town secret kind of thing that unfolds slowly through a movie where you find out like a house is haunted or there was multiple murders somewhere. Right. That has always been an underlining thing in my life growing up in my town. I remember one of my earliest memories was I was playing soccer, and I remember. And the only reason why I'm mentioning this now is because you mentioned the Danvers State Hospital. Yeah. At the time, it was still active, and I remember a mother talking to one of the other parents saying, "Oh, it's a horrible thing what they do to those people up in the hill." And it's not like it's a conversation; it was just kind of a town. Like, yeah, we know it's something that is just accepted. Right.
That's crazy. I want to get to Danvers in a little bit, but with the Salem stuff, like you grew up, I think, rather close to one of the houses, right?
So I currently live on Putnam Lane in a different town, but I grew up in Putnam Lane in Danvers, Massachusetts.
Oh, that's weird.
And my basically I grew up 2 houses away from Sam. I believe his name is Samuel Putnam, and his wife, who is a main player in the start of the Salem witch trials to begin with. So it was Ann Putnam and her 3 daughters, and there was some type of dark energy that was going on with I forget her name, but she was a housekeeper from Africa. But you know, those are the daughters that started pointing people out as witches, and it kind of, you know, started from there. So as a kid, during Halloween, it's a long street. You go up this long street and you get all your candy and come back home. But it was always definitely like a monumental moment when you got to go to the door of Samuel Putnam's house, and you're like, and Ann Putnam's house, and you're like, wow, like, I'm here. I hope no one jumps out and kills me, you know, like.
Right. It's always weird to me when like a place of tragedy or a thing of tragedy becomes a tourist trap, which is what Salem is in many ways, right? Yeah.
Well, for me, it's like my hometown is it's beautiful to go there because nobody knows.
Right.
Nobody really does their research. They all go downtown and they go to Salem and they go to these, like, I don't know, maybe some of the courthouses or the Salem dungeon, which are all kind of attractions and they're fun.
Right.
But when you put your like boots to the ground in the actual areas of like what happened and where they happened, that's in my hometown, and that to me is always a better tour. So the guys that I just took out on tour, on the tour in Salem, they liked the Salem like experience, but they were more excited by the folklore and the storytelling when I drove them around and we went into the woods and I showed them the old settlers of 1620s graves and we put our hands on them. That kind of stuff moved them more than actually, you know, just sitting there and watching some demonstration.
Right. Like the fast food version tour versus like the real tour from the person who knows. It's kind of like when I grew up next to a military base where we have a shell that carried the actual atom bomb to the plane that then dropped the bomb, right? And it's become this odd pilgrimage for a lot of Japanese to come over and take pictures with the bomb shell, right? So it's like I'm in this weird gift shop town for war. People come and take selfies with an atom bomb. It's a very bizarre thing, but I love taking people around, giving them like the real history.